All right, so welcome to Fix It. As you guys know, this course is designed to fix our financial issues, and I mean, we all have financial issues. And I was talking to a number of of your classmates, and a number of the students during the week, and I really enjoyed the feedback. It's been one of the best classes I've had in a long time. So I'm paying you a compliment. I love to hear from you guys, and I've been hearing from a lot of you, so not all of you. And if you want to send me an email, you've got a deal that you're thinking about doing, you've got a question, I've got lots of questions. And again, I apologize for sending you guys so many emails, but when a student gives me asks me a question, if we were in a classroom with 30 or 40 people and a student asks a question, well, everybody hears the answer, and then there's lots of good crosstalk going on between the students. But because we're doing it on Zoom, online, and by email and other messaging, so that's why you're getting so many emails from me. I apologize in advance, but I'm trying to make this as valuable as I can for you. And we're going to try, as I said, fix our financial issues. One of my students is having, some issues. I think some personal issues in a relationship. And I'm not a life coach, I'm not a psychotherapist, and I'm not qualified to give any marital advice or relationship advice for sure. But one thing I do want to say, and this is a completely made up stat by me. You've heard this one, right? 39% of statistics are made up on the spot. So this is one that's made up, but this is my guess that 80% of all marriages are asked for by men, and 80% of all divorces are asked for by women. Again, that's just a complete guess, but that's been my experience in the 70 years I've been walking the planet. People will often tell me, because I am a real estate investment coach and a business coach, they'll often tell me some very personal issues, and they'll say, I don't love them anymore. It's gone stale or whatever. I understand that. I mean, marriages do end. I get that. You guys all know the 3 quickest ways to get poor, right? Number 1 is to get divorced. Number 2 is to buy a horse ranch. Number 3 is to buy an NHL team. Now, I've only done 1 out of those 3. I don't own a horse ranch. I didn't get divorced, but I did buy an NHL team. But those are the 3 quickest ways to get poor. But what I often find is that when you boil all the issues down between 2 people, often at the, you go all the way down to the sort of the molecular level, you find that financial issues are stressing them out. And that if we can solve some of these financial issues, maybe they find that they really, in fact, do love the other person. And so I'm qualified maybe to help with fixing financial issues, but not fixing marital issues or relationship issues. So there you go. So I'm going to share my screen with you guys. Oh, this was the music I was playing before. So this is, as I said, welcome to lecture 2. Fix It, how to earn $10,000 a month or more from your own high-performing, simple-to-create real estate portfolio without breaking a sweat. And as you know, I said last week, that last bit, without breaking a sweat, probably isn't quite accurate. Everything requires work, including real estate. But I've said it many times, if say Chris and Nadine and I bought a triplex for $300,000 or $400,000 and we weren't getting along very well, and we decided to sell it, we'd probably get our money back or a little bit more. But if we started a tech company and it didn't work out, we probably wouldn't get much. So I do think that real estate happens to be probably a real estate business model for dummies like me, right? So it's you can lose money in real estate for sure. If you don't buy smart, you can lose money in real estate like anything else. But it's pretty hard to lose money in real estate compared to, say, a service business or a tech business or a products business. All right, enough of that. So this is lecture 2. So during this week, one of our students, Lizbeth from Connecticut, was looking to do a deal. And so she sent me some information. We went back and forth many times by email. And I just want to take you through the process that Lizbeth and I went through to sort of get a sense of whether this was a smart deal and whether she might, in fact, buy this, all right? And I've changed the address. She asked me to change the address because she doesn't have it under contract. So we're going to call it 555 Any Street in Bristol, Connecticut. All right. And what you're looking at here is the potential acquisition, and it is a triplex. And you'll notice in the back here, there is a detached garage or barn in the back here, which I really like. You guys know that I really like some kind of animation, and that has animation potential, as you'll see. So she writes to me and says, I'm thinking about buying this. And then she says, by the way, it's off market, right? And you probably already remember or know from last week and from other things you read that I've written, that off market private deals are often not necessarily the best deals, all right? Everybody has a can't miss deal. And you know, if you look at something that's on MLS or Zillow or some of the other sites that try and make sure that the information on their sites is accurate, and they do punish people if they put up inaccurate. When you're looking at private deals on Facebook, there's no rules, right? So you do have to take things with a little grain of salt. That's why you see the GIF there, take everything with a grain of salt. So the deal sheet on Facebook said the price is $190,000. This is obviously in US dollars. And the ARV value, the after repair value, is $250,000. And so the ad says on Facebook, guess what? You can make $60,000 potential equity gain right away. And you'll notice that they didn't spell potential right. All right. So, so there you go. Chief, I'll come back to your question in a minute. All right. So now the advertiser goes on to tell you all the good stuff. There's room to raise rents. Okay, it's fully leased, but there's room to raise rent somehow or other. No major repairs are required. Remember, you got to take all of this with a grain of salt. 4 separate electrical meters. That's good, so that each tenant could be separately metered and pay their own utility bills. All tenants are longstanding and current. And then they do understand, the seller did understand, that there's a detached 2-bay garage / barn with a roof that's less than 10 years old. So there is some idea from the seller that there might be some additional rent that can be achieved, some animation potential. So I like that. The triplex itself is pretty big. You can see it on the screen here, almost 2,400 square feet. But to me, the rents are a little bit low. And I think the seller is accurate in saying that. $850 a month for unit 1, and it has gas heat. Unit 2 is $875 a month, also gas. And unit 3 is a 1-bedroom unit rented for $600 a month with electric heat. And I suspect electric heat in Connecticut is pretty expensive, as it is in Ontario. So there's some okay things here, and there's some not so good things here. And again, I want to just emphasize for you that when you talk about private deals, off-market deals, they may not be the best deals in many ways. And by the way, there are a lot of lenders in the United States and in Canada who are very concerned about lending to off-market deals, that they haven't been exposed through the MLS system or through Zillow or any of these other reputable websites. The reason for that is mortgage fraud, right? I mean, we could sort of pretend that this building is worth $1 million, right? And I could advertise it on Facebook, and then somebody could buy it for $1 million. It could be a paper transaction. We could get a big whacking great mortgage based on $1 million transaction, take the money from the mortgage and walk away and run away. That's mortgage fraud. That's done a lot. So you just have to be super, super careful with wholesale deals and with off-market deals. And Chiranjeev is asking, if we find an off-market deal in Ottawa, is there any portal or website or team who does this? Well, I'm recommending against it, Chiranjeev. I like things that are exposed to reputable organizations that age, that have long days on market. I look for those because they have things like low rent. You remember how Nick Foley, Brooke Foley, managed to get something almost $100,000 under asking, but it was on MLS. It was not an off-market deal. So you just have to be careful. That's all. All right, enough of that. So we did a little bit of homework, Lizbeth and I, spreadsheet. And by the way, I'm going to put in the chat box at some point in a few minutes, the spreadsheet, so you can copy it out of the chat box and keep those links so you can see the kinds of things that we're doing. The purchase price, we're assuming you pay the list price or the asking price. So $190,000 This was a pure guesstimate on my part, $2,850 of closing costs, maybe some attorney fees, and the total acquisition cost might be close to $194,000, $195,000, something like that, just a guesstimate. And I don't care how much the seller tells you, oh, it's in perfect shape, there's always something wrong when you buy it. So I put in a little bit of money, well, more than a little bit, I put in $18,000 for cleanup and cosmetics. Maybe you have to paint the place. Maybe there's something else that goes wrong. I think it's a mistake to think that you'll buy something, you don't have to do a thing. So maybe you've got total acquisition cost and some renovation for $212,000. Again, I'm just guessing. But when you do these kinds of analyses, it doesn't really matter if it's 212,000, 206, or 208,000, or 218, or 220. It won't make that much of a difference. So you get a sense of what's going on. And even with these, what I consider quite low rents, 850, 875, and 600, by the time you calculate the total, which is your gross operating income, you take off the $790 based on 34% for your operating expenses. That's nothing to do with the mortgage. It's just your insurance and property taxes, repairs, maintenance, property management, etc. Nothing to do with the mortgage. You're left with $1,535 a month in net operating income, about $18,000 a year, gives an 8.7% going in cap rate. That's pretty good. A lot of my acquisitions are in the 6 or 7% range. A few are 7 or 8 or 9. I've got 1 or 2 at 10 and 11, maybe 1 or 2 at 12, but most of them are not 8.7%. So I thought when I talked to Lizbeth, that was pretty decent. So it's better than expected. And then I thought, well, what are some of the possible animations? We already talked about this workshop. And again, I really like this live work condition. I mean, I'm telling you, as a landlord, as a developer, this is, in my opinion, the way to go. So, and you look at this and you think, oh my goodness, it's in very poor shape. But you'll find that a lot of people who want to workshop, a lot of these industrial men and women, a lot of these people who have side hustles, they don't really care. All right, it doesn't have to look like I don't know, the most beautiful home in Los Angeles. They want something that's very practical, where they can go and they can practice their trade, hopefully make some money doing it, and they don't need something that is highly branded and beautiful. Maybe it could be a little bit nicer than this, but not necessarily by a whole lot. Even yoga studios, you'll find them in Barnes and other places like that. All right, so that's a possible animation. So here's a little bit more of the spreadsheet that we worked on. Questions. Could Lizbeth charge for parking? Could she provide her clients with a tech or multimedia package? I didn't spell multimedia correctly. A tech package, which means could she provide her tenants, both the 3 tenants in the building and the workshop tenant, with some kind of internet and other other multimedia, and that's a profit center for us. We do operate that ourselves, and then maybe she could rent that backyard workshop. And I just, again, it was a guesstimate. I put in $625 a month for the workshop. I took off $212 for operating expenses, leaving Lizbeth, if she buys this place, with $413 of net operating income, almost $5,000 a year. Maybe she does some renovations on the workshop, and I just put in a nominal amount of $14,500 to maybe bring it up to a different standard. So what that does is, it doesn't sound like much, $413 of net operating income a month, but real estate is all about get rich slow. It's all about little things that you do to boost your cap rate, and this little thing by itself will, in fact, produce a 10.3% cap rate potentially. And that's a home run if you can do it. All right, now I'm going to put, this is the, oops, I got to get out of this. This is the spreadsheet. I'm going to put that in the chat, chat box. Oops, I'm screwing up, guys. I'm going to put that in the chat box. And so you have to copy it out of the chat box, okay, everybody? All right, so there it is. If you want to look at it, you can download it from Dropbox, keep it on your computer, and you'll have yet another case study to look at. All right. Okay, so let's go back here. Sharon G, you asked about cap rates. I think I went through that last week, and you do have a replay of the of last week. I sent it to everybody. So if you want to, you can go back and have a look at that, and it'll explain why mortgages are not deducted from net operating income to calculate cap rates. All right. So this was an email that Lizbeth received from the seller. There are no major issues. Again, you have to take that with a grain of salt, because sellers have been known to maybe exaggerate a bit. And this part I didn't like. The property is still available, but has gained a lot of interest. Have you ever known a seller to say, nobody's interested in my property? We now have 2 offers on the table, sight unseen. Not really keen on buying something that I've never seen. If you would like to move forward, please provide proof of funds. So she can't even submit an offer without proof of funds that she can actually buy it. And she can, if she likes, he says, make her offer contingent on a walkthrough, right? That's pretty bad. I didn't really like that email. Anyway, some of the other things that I asked Lizbeth to do is find out what the economy is like in Bristol, because I like to invest in places that have a number of economic engines, maybe government, possibly technology, tourism, strong services, construction, banking, finance. You know, Hartford, Connecticut is famous for insurance. So you want to look, whether it's a small town or a larger town or a larger city, you want to know what are the economic engines in that town. So do some homework before you invest in a town. If everybody's losing their job, that doesn't necessarily bode very well for your investment. Then I asked her, can you check on Craigslist? What workshops are renting for? I guess $625 for a workshop. Maybe somebody could put a yoga studio on there and teach yoga. Maybe somebody needs to, you know, and does register massage therapy. But check and see what they're renting for, because my numbers could be wrong. And also check what the crime rate is. That's a very, very important thing, whether it's in Canada, the United States, or overseas. If a neighborhood has very serious crime, you cannot create a lot of value, right? Value is only created where you have peace and order. You know, if you think about, unfortunately, Detroit in the 1980s and 90s, it's doing a little better now, but only marginally. It's very hard to create value. You know, I have a friend, she's an architect, who bought, I think, 12 townhouses in Detroit for not very much money. I think maybe $1,000 for each townhouse. And she fixed them up. But, you know, when she went to collect the rents from some of her tenants, she would go to the door, and they would come to the door with a pistol. And they would say, if you come back and ask me for money, I'm going to shoot you. It's very, very hard to create value in a place that has no law. And there are places in Detroit, I think even to this day, where the police will not go. When I was trying to bring back the Ottawa Senators for Ottawa, I got to know Mike Ilitch pretty well. And by the way, you can see who I'm cheering for in the National Football League playoffs, in case you're interested. Oh, Chris is giving me the thumbs down. I'm going for the Bills. But anyway, I went to visit Mr. Ilitch in the 1990s. He was the owner then, he's passed away now, but he was the owner of the Detroit Red Wings. And we had dinner together. We watched a hockey game at the Joe Louis Arena. And he said, Bruce, what's the murder rate like in your hometown? That's Ottawa. And I said, oh, I don't know, like 9 or 10. He said, oh, a day? No, I said, Mike, that's a year. Oh, he says, we get that a day in Detroit. And Detroit's smaller than Ottawa. And imagine that many murders in a day. It's very, very difficult to create value, whether it's real estate or anything else, in a town that is experiencing that. Major crime in Ottawa, Canada's capital city, we have a 94% solve rate for murders and major crime in Ottawa, which is pretty good. In Detroit, it's 1%. So if you're thinking about killing somebody, go to Detroit. You're likely to get away with it. All right. All kidding aside, though, it's very important to know what the crime rate is, not just in the area, but in the neighborhood. Right. And then Lizbeth wrote me back, Connecticut is not really investor landlord friendly. Well, Lizbeth, welcome to Ontario, which is very unfriendly to landlords. So that's a concern, right? And I know Lizbeth is thinking about investing in Florida, which is very much more landlord friendly than probably Connecticut and certainly than Ontario. And then she writes, Bristol is not bad. It's small, but it has some nice areas and some not so nice areas. And she has to do more research. So that's good. Now, one of the things I stress is that you want to go slower to go faster. And I think that's probably true in most things, that most businesses, and real estate's no different. I have a couple of billionaires I coach, and some people who have hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars, and they come to me and they want to learn real estate and they want to buy 10 properties or 20 properties the first day out. And I go, no. You're going to buy one. You're going to learn every aspect of that business. You've heard me say this before. I want you to go slower to go faster. And there's that old expression, I don't know, it's got to be a few hundred years old. The hurrier I go, the behinder I get. All right. So just try and do one transaction, do it really well, and understand every aspect of it. How to buy smart, how to properly finance it, how to animate it, how to renovate it, how to reappraise it, refinance it, how to pull money out and do it again. Learn every aspect of it. And then as you get more successful, you can I'm doing 6 projects now. Even at 70, I can manage that, but I wouldn't want to do 60 at this age, right? I'm not sure I would want to do 60 at any age, but 6 for me is plenty, right? But for my clients and people who are new in this industry, 1 is plenty. All right. So she worked on the transaction. She was trying to get proof of funds. And then she says to me, I've never submitted an offer before. That's a red flag to me, right? Do you have a template I can use? Lizbeth asks me. All right. So that warning bell should be going off in your mind too. And I wrote her back saying, Lizbeth, you need a realtor to submit this for you, someone who represents you and only you. Can you find somebody in Bristol you can trust? And sometimes with off-market deals, the seller will tell you, oh, listen, we're not paying any commission. You use a realtor, you're out. I get that. I understand that. But if you're new in this business, or even if you're not, like when I sell my own house, if I did that, I would have one of my realtors do it. I wouldn't represent myself, even though I'm a realtor. I would actually ask one of the people who works with me in my brokerage to help me with it. I would not represent myself. You've heard this one, the doctor who treats himself or herself has a fool for a client. Same thing with a realtor, same thing with a lawyer. You want somebody in your court. So what I would do if somebody said, look, Bruce, if you're going to use a realtor to put in a bid, we're not paying a commission. I would say to the seller, no problem. I'll pay it. I'll pay it. In 99% of the, or 90% anyway, of the deals you would do, the seller will pay the commission. You as a buyer will not. But if I have to, I will pay it myself. I'll hire a realtor. He or she will represent me. We'll put in an offer and I'll say right in the agreements, no realtor fee from the seller. The buyer is responsible for that. And I have a lot of clients who will ask me to represent them in a buying situation, mainly on the commercial side. And they will say, but by the way, Bruce, you cannot accept a fee, a realtor fee from the seller. We want you to represent us and only us, and we will pay you. Canadian Tire, for example, is an organization like that. They will pay the realtor to represent them, and they don't mind. And you shouldn't either. It's worth it, in my opinion. All right, let's see what else we got in the chat box going here. We got a question. What about Chicago, Illinois? Is that a landlord-friendly city and state? You have to, when we're talking about landlord-friendly, you really have to get to know the market. So I don't know. I have done transactions in Chicago with clients of mine, but I'm not an expert in Illinois. That's why you need a local realtor, right? And a local real estate lawyer who knows, is there rent control? What are the rules that are wrapped around, especially residential rentals? You probably know this if you're in the commercial side, the industrial side, right? The retail, at least in Ontario and most other jurisdictions, there are no rules. But when you're on the residential side, New York City, for example, has very onerous rent control rules, right? Ontario has very onerous, so you have to find out for yourself. Here's Pierce saying something. I like this question, Pierce. Give me a second here. I'm going to take a bit of water. Pierce is asking, if you're renting a garage, are there any concerns with it being deemed commercial? That's an excellent question. The good news, Pierce, is that you want it to be deemed commercial. Okay, that's good news for you. And why do I say that? Well, in Ontario and in other jurisdictions as well, if you rent, you heard me say this last time, if you rent a workshop, for example, and it's a commercial lease, and the residential space is accessory to that, so that you don't have a separate residential lease, you just have a commercial lease, and the apartment that you're renting is accessory to the commercial use. So say somebody came along and wanted to rent that barn as a registered massage therapist or a yoga studio. That I would do that as a commercial lease, and the apartment that she would rent or he would rent would be accessory to that. In Ontario, that means that apartment is no longer subject to rent control. It's no longer subject to residential tenancy. In addition to that, Ontario has something called the HST, the Harmonized Sales Tax. It does not apply on residential rents, but it does on commercial. And that is also a good news story. So Pierce, you're going to ask me, I know you will, why is that a good news story to pay tax? Because you charge your commercial tenant, say you charged her, just to make the numbers easy, $1,000 a month for her yoga studio. You have to, because it's commercial, charge an additional 13%. That's like in Europe, it's called a value added tax, a VAT. Only in Canada, or at least in Ontario, they call it HST. So she has to pay you $1,000 plus another $130. The rate is 13%. So now you're getting $1,130, and you're saying, oh, well, I just have to turn around and give that extra $130 to the government of Canada. But that's actually not true. Let's say you had to pay a property manager. Property managers charge HST on their, on their fees. Or you had to put in, I don't know, something, you had to put a new heating unit in there, and you spent, let's say, $1,000 on that, and you paid $130 in HST to the HVAC guy who put it in. That's considered an input tax credit. So guess what? It means you keep that $130. So HST, Harmonized Sales Tax, and goods and services taxes are a profit center for businesses, not for us as consumers, right? If you're in Europe and you buy something and there's a 25% VAT in the price, you have to pay that, you don't get that back. But if you're a businessman or businesswoman, as you would be in this case, it becomes refundable. You get it, it's a profit center. You get that, Pierce? Just write yes or no. I hope you did. There you go, he's got it. All right. All right, so now let's look at some of the other things. So Elizabeth working really hard. She did manage to get pre-approval from a lender, probably a hard money lender, which means, somebody who, you ever read Merchant of Venice, Shylock? Yeah. Anyway, so she got an offer of finance on the same day for $152,000, which is 80% loan to value. So that's probably pretty typical. The rate wasn't particularly good. It was 4.75%. But she didn't understand what this was, an origination fee of 2.5 points. That's a fee that she will have to pay on closing to the funder. So that works out, you can see it down here at the bottom, to $3,800. So that I didn't want her, if she does the deal, I didn't want her to be surprised on the day of close. Oh my gosh, I got to find another $3,800. Okay. Now this is something else I really want you guys to think about. The term here is 30 years, right? 30 years. Now the question is, let's say she buys this. She does some things to fix up the property, rent that workshop, whatever. The value goes up and she wants to refinance. What I asked her is, can she get out of this mortgage and get a mortgage at maybe 2 or 3% without paying a huge break fee? Do you understand that? right? Because if you're locked in for 30 years, you're going to pay 4.75% for 30 years instead of maybe something quite a bit less, all right? So when you are looking at offers of finance from people like this, you really have to be careful and cautious, all right? You have to know what you're doing. And if you're a rookie, that's why you need a good realtor, you need a good real estate attorney, and you need a good mortgage broker who works for you, not for anybody else. All right, so I think I've sort of covered everything off here, so I can skip over this slide. All right, I had some fun. I just couldn't resist it. What I did, I don't know, maybe none of you, or maybe some of you have seen a movie called Fight Club. And when I read, when I was sort of thinking about Lizbeth's case over the last few days, it kind of reminded me of the Fight Club situation, right? And so I wrote, instead of Fight Club rules, here are the Fight Club rules on the left-hand side, I wrote Real Estate Investor Club rules, all right? The first rule, you do not talk about real estate investor club business models. The second rule, you do not talk about real estate investor club business models. And what I mean by that is these business models that you're learning from me, that you're paying some money and certainly investing a lot of your time in, you know, these business models are yours. You don't have to tell your realtor, even though he or she is working for you. You don't have to tell your mortgage broker, even though he or she is working for you, your real estate attorney, and you certainly don't have to tell the sellers, oh, I got all these great ideas of how I can make money with your property. Well, you don't want to do that, right? Because the price will just go up. So rule number one, don't talk about your real estate investor club business models. Of course, you can talk about it amongst the group. Rule number three, if a planner says stop, tell them to go take a hike. As you guys know by now, just after one lecture, I don't really have the utmost respect for bylaws and ordinances. I have total respect for the building code, right? We want our buildings to be safe, absolutely. But some of these zoning bylaws and ordinances are terribly restrictive, and I fight them all the time, and I've asked you to question them at least, and possibly fight them. Fourth rule, you know, one deal at a time. Don't do 10 deals. Don't try and do 10 deals. Do one and do it really well. And once you know every aspect of it, including property management, proper leasing, once you've got all of that, then you can go do a bunch more. But you got to get, the first one has to work, okay? And it has to work well. And only one offer at a time. I hate competitive situations. So if it was up to me, Lizbeth, and thank you very much for your nice note there. Thanks for all your help, Bruce. Appreciate it. That means a lot to me. It makes my day, really. But if somebody says I've got 15 offers, I got 2 offers, I got 7 offers, I go, great. What I do then is I say, look, I'm not going to be in a competitive situation. Good luck. I hope you sell it, get a lot of money for it. Oh, God bless you. Go ahead. But if you don't sell it, I'm going to check back in a week or 2, and then maybe I'll be interested. And that often happens, right? I mean, people, you know, often say, oh, I got 5 offers, but maybe they're all horrible. And then you see, oh my gosh, it's still for sale. A week later, 2 weeks later, sometimes 2 months later, then I put an offer in and it's all by itself. I often get it on the rebound, right? Okay, 6th rule, okay? Don't have any partners. There are 2 chairs in heaven waiting for the first 2 partners to get there and still like each other. By golly, that's true. Don't have any partners. I'm okay with investors, but I'm not okay with partners. People go, what the heck is the difference between a partner and an investor? An investor just wants return on investment. He or she just wants to make money. A partner wants a say in the business. And, you know, I don't have any partners. And when I want to make a decision, you know, and I call a meeting of the board of directors, I can go in a cupboard by myself, meet with myself for 5 minutes, come out with a decision. All right. The thing that will kill any business, and not just the real estate business, but any business, a tech business, is you need one controlling voice, one decision maker. As soon as you have a partner, he or she wants a say in the business, it slows everything down. And I'll tell you what else happens. If you don't remember anything else from today, please focus on this for a moment. I'm just going to see, okay. So what happens is this: two partners are involved. All right, so Nadine and I have bought a triplex together. And we're 50-50 partners. There's your first clue, Sherlock. 50-50 is a recipe for disaster because it's a deadlock. What do we do when we don't agree? Well, problem. But then here's what happens is Nadine does a lot of the property management. She does a lot of the leasing. When something goes wrong, she helps get somebody on site to fix the plumbing or whatever. She's doing all kinds of work. She's talking to the mortgage broker. She's talking to the lender. She's doing all the work. And I'm going, this is great. Nadine is doing everything. I just along for the ride. But oh, don't forget, Nadine, you got to talk to me before you do anything material with it. So I'm still part of the decision loop, but I'm not doing any work. So Nadine, after a year or two of this, gets really PO'd with Bruce. She says, I'm doing all the work. He's doing nothing. And the property's gone up in value. He's getting half the benefit. He's doing nothing. So she gets mad and she says, Bruce, you got to do more of the work. And I said, oh, sure. I'll do more of the work, but I don't do a damn thing. Another year goes by. So finally, Nadine is just fed up with me. And she says, well, if he's not going to do any work, I'm not going to do any work either. Think about that. That happens. That's very real. So your property becomes an orphan, or your business becomes an orphan. Nobody now is looking after it. Now that's a disaster. You know, we talked about the property is going up in value, but now we got bad tenants, we got vacancies, we got deferred maintenance, you know, the roof is leaking, we got mold loose in the damn building. So partners are a disaster waiting to happen. I don't care how much you love your partner when you're going in, all right? It is a disaster. And I see Michael says most two-person owned companies, about 2/3 have unequal shares in order to avoid the problems. But even then, Michael, even if I owned 1/3 and you own 2/3, you'd be expecting me to do 1/3 of the work. And maybe I'm just a lazy so-and-so. I'm telling you, I mean, listen, I'm just here as a coach, as a mentor, hopefully as a friend too. You do what you think is right. But I'm telling you, partners are a disaster. So what I recommend is if you want a partner, do a non-partnership partnership. And people go, what the heck is a non-partnership partnership? Well, Michael, I'm going to tell you what it is. So let's say, Michael, you and I own a triplex. You own 2/3 of it and I own 1/3 of it. And it's going pretty good. So we buy a second one as partners. And you own 2/3 of that and I own 1/3 of it. And then by golly, another year goes by, we buy a third one. So now Michael owns 2/3 of 3 triplexes and I own 1/3 of 3 triplexes. This is a perfect situation for a non-partnership partnership to work. Here's what I do. So when clients of mine come along and they have 3 partners or 2 partners, 10, I don't know, hopefully not 10. But anyway, I tell them you should prepare the divorce before you're mad at each other. And what you do then, so Michael, what you and I do, thank you, Tiff. What I do, Michael, is let's say we've worked together for 5 years and maybe we're not getting along quite so well, is we sit down together, and if we aren't getting along, we have a couple of advisors helping us, you know, really mediators. And they say, okay, Michael, why don't you keep 2 of these triplexes, 100% you, and Bruce, you keep 1 of them. So which one do you want, Bruce? Well, I want that one over there. And Michael says, okay, I'll take these 2. So now Michael owns 100% of 2 and Bruce owns 100% of 1. And, you know, Michael wants to refinance these and grow the portfolio, but I want to sell mine and take the money, run off to Costa Rica, smoke cigars and drink rum, right? So if you go into a partnership, if you do, I think it should be with the idea that there's going to be an exit, and you can exit without having to sell. You can just simply trade my half for your half, or my third for, you know, you understand, Michael, where I'm coming from there? Just say yes in the chat box if you don't mind. So that's rule number 6. The 7th rule is financing goes on as long as it has to. Financing today is very, very difficult, and good financing is really key to this business. Right? So the financing that Lizbeth showed me wasn't necessarily the greatest financing. I'm not saying it's bad, but I would need to know a lot more about it before I could say it was manageable, right? And then the 8th rule is, at least as far as I am concerned as a coach, the 8th rule is, if this is your first time at the Real Estate Investor Club, you have to do a deal. Like, I'm only interested in helping you and coaching you. If you want any help from me or coaching from me, if you're really going to try and do a deal, one deal, and later on you can do 10 more, but one. So I'm not really interested in talking to people, certainly as a coach, who are going to, talk, but not necessarily do anything. I'm too old for that. I like helping people do real things in real space and do one deal. So those are my Fight Club rules. Okay, there you go. All right. So late last night, I don't know if Alex is on the call. Alex, if you're on the call, just put yes, I'm here.
Hey, Bruce.
Oh, there he is. I'm so glad
Yeah.
to see you, Alex. So I'm glad to see you. So I hope you don't mind. I'm going to use your work, your case study here. Is that okay?
Yeah, please do. Yeah.
I did email you, sort of in the middle of the night, asking for your permission. I know
No worries.
you might actually want to sleep.
I don't sleep.
So Alex is a former student of mine. Alex, when were you a student? It was quite some time ago.
I was in my 20s. I must have been third year architecture.
I think it was third.
Early 20s.
Do you mind if I ask how old you are now?
I just turned 50.
Oh my God.
I just turned 50, man.
Oh my God, this is killing me.
So I'm in the middle age club.
Oh my gosh. So guys, you're getting old when your students start turning 50. Right? So Alex, you just killed me there. Oh, I'm so glad.
Yeah, I know. Is this shocking, huh? Me too.
That's awesome. Anyway, let me walk through this, Alex. Is your brother on today too?
No, Dan's overseas. So
okay. But you're welcome when we have the replay. I think Dan, your brother, might want to watch this part. Okay?
Yeah, for sure.
So mute yourself, but come back when I ask a few questions. Okay, brother?
Yeah, absolutely. I can give you any details you need.
Thank you. All right. So, all right. So, Alex, just mute yourself for now. Okay?
Yep.
All right. So this is a property that Alex disclosed to me last night. He bought before he did this course. It's at 2288 Fox Crescent, which is a good part of this particular city. It's a bungalow on a large lot. It's quite an interesting lot. And Alex and his brother did a heck of a lot of work over the summer fixing it up. But what's really interesting about this, and maybe interesting in a not particularly great way, is it's a one-bedroom house. One bedroom on the main level. So they did a beautiful job fixing it up. A lot of sweat equity. You guys know sweat equity is just your own efforts. And it looks very nice from the MLS listing. This is the backyard. And I just took these pictures from the MLS listing that Alex sent me. So it's got a big backyard. It's got a couple of storage sheds. Now, I happen to hate these storage sheds, Alex, because these metal things, they don't last. I buy storage sheds, but I buy stick frame, wood frame storage sheds from the Amish with metal roofs. They last at least 40 years. How do I know that? Because I have some that last 40 years. So these are probably going to be junked at some point. But anyways, beautiful backyard. Now this, I think, is, let's see, yes. Yeah, this is, I think, this is Alex's and his brother's ad on MLS. So they're trying to rent it now. So they bought it, and you'll see, we'll do some numbers too, Alex. The boys bought it, they fixed it up, and they've had it on MLS for some time. And it says that there's one bedroom here, total 2. A second bedroom downstairs can serve as an office or gym. So that's kind of an issue that I think, is really, do you want to sleep in the basement? Not really, but it could be an office or a gym. Fair enough. But the fact that it only has 2 bedrooms and one of them is in the basement is a negative. Something else, Alex, I wanted to point out, and to everybody on the call, is that the deposit amount, if you're renting this, because they're asking $2,400 a month, the deposit is 2 months, first and last month. Very, very typical. All right, very, very typical. $4,800 first and last month, $2,400 times 2. Alex, one of the things I do, though, when I do residential leasing, is I do things a little bit differently. I ask people when they sign a lease to put the last month down when they sign the lease. So let's say Betty signs the lease for this place, and she's going to take it, it's now January, she's going to take it March 1st. So what I do when she signs the lease, I ask her for $2,400, which is her last month's rent, that's her deposit. And then when she moves in, I ask her for her first month's rent on the first day of the month. So it breaks it up. Instead of having to find $4,800 up front, she has to find $2,400, and then when she moves in, another $2,400. Something else that I do is I give my tenants the option to pay on the 1st and the 15th of the month. When I was in Australia a long time ago, I lived there for many years, you know, my landlord would come by and pick up the rent every week. You know, back then, I think it was $35 a week I had to pay, and he would come and I would give it to him in cash. I lived in Bondi Beach, and it was $35 a week, and there I would give it to him. So what I do is I say, look, sure, you can pay $2,400 on the first day of the month, but you can pay $1,200 on the first and another $1,200 on the 15th. It really helps a lot of tenants, you know, because they get paid every couple of weeks. All right, now this then is again, just part of the MLS listing. And Alex, I don't put anything up for sale or for lease just before Christmas. Okay. You know, when I saw that, you know, 20th of December, people are, you know, it's family time. And so sort of from the 15th of December, maybe even a little bit earlier until probably the 7th or 8th or 9th or 10th of January, I just don't put anything, because what happens is these listings start to age and it looks bad for you, the landlord, or bad for you, the seller. So DOM stands for days on market. It's now been a month and it's still for lease. So I think the fact that it went up over Christmas was probably a negative. And then I'm going to share, I hope Alex doesn't mind, I'm going to share, you know, some of the stuff that he wrote to me. And I share this with Alex. I have a wonderful track record of making a lot of money in stocks and then blowing it. I'm exactly the same, Alex. That's why I don't invest in the stock market, mutual funds, none of that stuff. Tax-free savings accounts, RRSPs, sorry, I'm hopeless at it. I'm just terrible. So you and I shared that. This one here is something important as well. I'm not going to go through everything, but my intent, this is Alex talking, was to develop the property possibly into 2 or 3 houses, but I'm open to other ideas, particularly your idea of a coach house. So I quite like that. All right. Now, when we're talking about financing, Alex already knows this. Boy, did he get hosed. Sorry, Alex and Dan, when you watch this, I really feel bad about this. The property was purchased for $900,000. Actually, $900,008 was the purchase price. And Alex and his brother had to put 50% down in cash. So it's empty. It's been empty for a while. It's costing them money. And I'm going to put this, I'm going to get out of my slide deck here for a moment. I'm going to put this, I'm going to put this in the chat box for you. And Alex, I particularly want you to download it, but I want everybody else to do it as well. And that is, I wrote something, it's not very long, it's maybe 3 pages, why you should use a mortgage broker. Because Alex, I'm a good mortgage broker, and I'm quite happy to introduce you to my mortgage broker. I did say that in my email to you overnight. You should be able to get an 80% loan to value mortgage on this. Okay, you should, so that you don't have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of extra thousands of dollars invested and tied up in a property. But we'll talk about that offline. All right, so copy that out of that. Okay, let's go to the next one. Now here's that interesting lot that Alex was talking about. You can see it's very odd shape, and I like the fact that it's irregular. Alex, you're an architect and a tech guy. You know that when you put constraints on an architect, the smaller the footprint, the more difficult the lot. Actually, the more creative the person has to be. That's your experience too, right, Alex? You can just nod yes. I mean, more constraints is not necessarily bad. And the fact that this is a very interesting looking lot, I think it actually could be very promising. All right, so this is something else, Alex. I pulled land titles, which I'll be happy to send you. So it was purchased from last August, so August 9th, 2021 for $900,008. And I'm guessing that the $8 was, maybe there were more than one offer. And so Alex didn't go in with a round number. He went in with a number that was a little bit higher than, so, and I do that too, by the way. If I'm putting in an offer, I don't put in round numbers. I don't think I've ever done something quite like this, but if I'm going to go and put an offer in on a $500,000 property, it might be $484,975. It just looks like I've calculated the number. And look at this. Victoria and Donald, the original owners from 2006, paid $180,000 for this property and sold it for $900,008 in 15 years later. So they did pretty well.
Those are the kids of Mr. Hall. I knew Mr. Hall when I was a paper boy, when I was 10 years old. So yeah.
There you go. Well, they've done very, very, very well. So
they're fun.
All right. Now, in terms of potential severance, in many jurisdictions, you have to have a certain amount of frontage before you can sever a property. Okay. So if you had a lot that was 50 feet, wide, you probably, at least in our jurisdiction, you probably couldn't sever that. If it's 66 feet, you probably can. But this one, Alex is right. Alex and Dan are right. This one is 86 feet. So you can see it's got 86 feet of frontage and it could be severed. But in order to sever it, they'd have to tear down the existing building, which you could do. So you could build two buildings there. So you could tear that building down, sever it, and probably build two homes instead of one. I'm not sure that's what I would do, but it is potentially possible. I think that they're right, that they could do that. Now, the question is, if you spent $900,000 buying this piece of land and this house, and you sever it into two lots, basically you're buying a lot for each house for $450,000. So the question is a $450,000 land cost for a house, is that a good investment? Might be, but it might not be. We'd have to do a lot more analysis to find out. So here's another thing I'm going to put in the chat box. So I'm going to have to, I'm going to have to get out of this again. Apologize for going back and forth. So this is, again, it's not very long. It's only a few pages long. And I'll put it in the chat box for you guys. There you go. And I would like you to download it so you have it. Professional investors, people who run big real estate portfolios, they do use cap rates. Chiranjeev, they do use cap rates, but they also use internal rates of return. And I'm going to explain very, very simply the difference between a cap rate and an internal rate of return. A cap rate only measures the cash flow that you're generating from a property. What is your net operating income? What was the cost to buy it and to renovate it? That's your cap rate, right? Net operating income divided by your cost to acquire and renovate. That's your cap rate. But you know that there are some other types of returns, right, in real estate. That's not the only return. Cap rates are very important, but it only measures cash flow. In addition to that, you have appreciation in real estate, at least you hope. And as you know, in the sort of preamble to this course, I talked about one of my daughters. I've got 5 kids, 3 beautiful daughters and 2 fine sons. My middle daughter, Miriam, I helped her buy a house in, I think, 2017, so 4 or 5 years ago. She bought it for $345,000. And then she put a basement apartment in, which I helped her with, and it cost $80,000. So she and her husband and her baby can live in her own half double for about $600 or $700 a month after paying for everything, and Chiranjeev, including her mortgage, right? So her internet, her utilities, everything, because she's got income from that basement apartment. Okay, so think about that. She can live in a 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath, half double with a single car garage for $600 or $700 a month. In a place like Ottawa, you can't really rent much more than a room for $600 a month, right? So that apartment really helps my daughter, Miriam. And then she had to refinance it this year. I guess her mortgage came up, and she said, "Dad, I'm a bit nervous. Her mortgage is about $250,000, and she bought it for $345 plus $80,000. So about $425,000 was her cost. Her mortgage is about $250,000. And she said, "What do you think it's worth?" And I said, "Oh my gosh, I can't keep up with real estate values. You know, I mean, it's just insane what's going on. You know, you've heard me talk about this already." And she said, "What do you think it'll appraise at?" And I said, "I don't know, maybe 600,000, maybe a little bit more." She said, "It'd be fantastic." I said, "Great." And so we did a comparative market analysis, and we did some other numbers, a lot of stuff that you already know. And I thought it would come in around 650. So I said, "Mimi, I think we're going to get 650." Anyway, when the appraiser got finished with it, it was $760,000. Yeah. And Mimi said, "Oh my God, Dad, I'm rich, and let's sell it." I said, whoa, wait a second. No, we're not selling it. I had to go on title with her because she needed some help financing it and also to get her mortgage. So I'm a joint tenant with her I'm on title with her. And I said, "No, we're not selling it, because if you sell it, Mimi, you're just going to buy something else and you're going to pay at least that amount. Why would you sell it to just buy something else?" And she thought about it for a moment, and she agreed. But think about that. It's gone up $300,000 or $400,000 in 4 years. And for a young person, a young mother, I don't know about you guys, but to save $300,000 or $400,000 in 4 or 5 years is not easy. I've told you already, I'm a very good investor, but I'm a terrible saver. Terrible, absolutely. You know, if I have some money, I give it away to my kids. So I'm just hopeless as a saver. So I asked Miriam, I said, "Mimi, what do you think this building would be worth when you're my age, when you're 70? Well, when you're in your 20s, you know, you can't imagine ever being 70, but you know, I don't know what it'll be worth, but it's gone from 345,000 to 760 in 4 or 5 years. What will it be like when 50 years from now or 45 years from now when she's 70? I don't know, but it'd probably be a lot more." So the internal rate of return measures 3 main types of return in real estate. So up till now in this course, I've only talked about one type, which is the cap rate, making cash. And I believe in making cash, because nothing is more boring than having to reach into your pocket, right, Alex, every month to pay money for something that doesn't make any money. Alex, give me the thumbs up there, brother. It's not fun. And when I was running a hockey team that was losing $40 million a year, that's not fun either. You know, I mean, the first year it might be amusing, maybe even the second year, but by the time you get to year 3 or 4, my golly, it's not fun. So you want to have a business, or you want to have a piece of real estate that does cash flow. So we've nailed that. Okay. But the internal rate of return mixes all 3 of these things. In other words, 1, cash flow; 2, real estate appreciation; and 3, a pay down of your mortgage. So Chiranjeev, the internal rate of return does embrace the pay down of the mortgage by your tenants. So the good news is, you have a rental property, and eventually I hope Alex and his brother will rent this thing. The tenant pays rent. That rent helps them pay down their mortgage, right? The internal rate of return is really kind of like a weighted average of those 3 things. I can't go into any more detail because it's beyond the scope of this course, but at least I wanted to make you guys aware of that that's the more true and important measure. That's what makes these guys on Wall Street or wherever they are, you know, who run these huge portfolios. That's what they look at, the internal rate of return. They look at the cap rate, but they also analyze IRR. You'll hear that a lot. All right, so Alex, this is what I wanted to show you. So here's the aerial photograph of the property again. And this is what I think might make more sense than ripping down this building and dividing it into 2 lots. This is what I think. And that is, what I would probably do is I would probably put a coach house in the backyard, and I have a very specific design I hope I'll be able to get to today, because I think it'll help you and everybody else. I'd probably put a workshop here, and again, that live work condition, and I would probably add a micro suite here. And I think you can get all 3. Alex, you may be aware that the Ontario government passed Bill 108. It was, I think, in 2019. Bill 108 allows an in-home apartment and a coach house. And so I think this will really make a difference. All right, and you'll see why in a minute. Why do I like micro suites so much? You know I love micro suites. They typically are about 300 square feet, might be 250, might be 350, but they're that range. And the reason I like it's the single hottest trend, you've heard me say this again before, is that people don't really want roommates. If you have a roommate who's who's cleaning the toilet, the bathroom this week, who ate the last piece of pizza, who drank the last of the beer. When you have a micro suite, it's all yours. You get better tenants who stay longer. And of course, now we're in a pandemic, it's also a little bit safer, I think, in terms of health. I wanted to show you this. The University of British Columbia is building micro suites, but they're so small, they don't call them micro suites, they call them nano suites. They're 140 square feet. A fully functional micro suite in 140 square feet. It blew my mind, and it's been very successful at UBC. And you can see it. Here's I put the floor plan here. Got a little kitchenette here, little space for storage. You've got a desk that turns into a bed, and a bed that turns back into a desk, and you've got a full bathroom. Students much prefer this than, when I was at McGill University, a couple of ages ago, we all had roommates, and my roommate liked to smoke weed and listen to 45 records until 3 o'clock in the morning, and I had to get up at 6 or 7 to go and be an engineer. It wasn't the best situation, I can tell you. But I don't build micro suites that small. So most of the micro suites that I'm building are around 300 square feet. Some are a little bigger, some are a little bit smaller, but not much. Although I did build I think I told you a 192 square foot house for one of my daughters this last summer. So no roommates, no squabbling, and you get higher rents, they stay longer, and you get better tenants. This is super, super hot. People want less house and more life. They want to spend less on their house, and they want to, have more experiences. And this is true not just of young people, but of older people too. All right, so this is new to you, Alex, then. And this is what I worked on. So these are just sort of my numbers. The purchase price was $900,000 and a bit. Land transfer tax, a lot of jurisdictions in the United States and Canada, in fact, all around the world. In Australia, I think they call it stamp duty, have some kind of tax when a house trades. In Ontario, it's called land transfer tax. Then you pay, again, some legal fees, disbursements, title insurance. So I said the total acquisition cost for Alex and his brother Dan was about $916,000. And then I did something that maybe Alex wouldn't agree with, or maybe he would. What I did was, if the two fellows put in 12 weeks of labor, after work, 20 hours a week for the two of them, their time is valuable. And one of the things I do in my renovations and construction is I pay myself. So what I do, Alex, is I put in a budget for myself and for my wife and for others who are working on this, even if it's my labor, okay, even if it's my time, whether it's $85 or $125 an hour, $45 an hour, you can play with that number, but your time is worth something. And I will go to a lender and say, look, I'm doing a renovation or I'm doing a development here. I need, $500,000 to do it. And maybe 30 or 40,000 of that is for my time or my wife's time, because we're project managers, we're development managers, we're construction managers, right? We have to be paid too. And I've never had an appraiser, and I've never had, a construction lender refuse to accept that. It's called sweat equity, but it has value. So I just threw in $40,000 for your time and Dan's time. So I said the total acquisition cost is probably closer to $957,000, and the place, as you saw earlier, looks very nice. All right. So hopefully it rents soon, and they get $2,400 a month. That's gross operating income, $2,400 a month, $28,800 a year. And again, we take off 34% for repairs, maintenance, vacancy allowance, property taxes, insurance. Even, Alex, even if you're doing your own property management, pay yourself. Actually do that. You should pay yourself 5, 6, 7, 8% of your rent, right? Because somebody has to manage it. It's real cost. Maybe you have some utilities that you have to pay as the landlord. Maybe you have, I can't even spell bookkeeping. Maybe you have a bookkeeper. All of that goes into OPEX. And again, Sharon Jeeve, nothing to do with mortgage payments. So about $9,700 a year for that. And I'll bet you it's actually higher than that in this case. So the net operating income, there's that number 8 again, is $19,008 a year approximately, which gives Alex and Dan breaking news, Alex, your cap rate is 1.99%. That is really, really not great. Okay. I don't mean to hurt your feelings. Okay. I'm not trying to hurt your feelings. I mean that sincerely. I love this class, and I'm really glad you're submitting to this inquisition here. But when I started coaching a couple of young fellows in Long Beach, that's what they were getting in California. They were buying property at 1.7 to 1.9% cap rates. And I said, you got to stop doing that. That is a recipe for not success. That's not a recipe for success. So 1.99% is where I think it's at now. James, you asked, in terms of Ontario Bill 108, how soon will we see the change accepted by the City of Ottawa? So far, I've had no problem with it. All right. And you also asked a very good question, James. What's the difference between a secondary unit and a micro suite? It can be quite different. A secondary dwelling unit can be a fully legalized separate apartment, whereas a micro suite can be like an in-home suite, which means it's still connected to the house. All right. So there are ways to present it to the city, and Dustin Poole, who's on this call, can help you with that. He's an architectural technology, he's very good at this. He knows how to present these things to the city so they get approved. And next week, which is our last week, we're going to do two things mainly. Next week, we're going to talk about just how you handle those kinds of development applications and micro suites in particular. And we're also going to do more work on financing, because the financing is really important. But that's next week, okay? So Alex, this was really not a great result, 1.99%, but it's a bridge to the next step. So what does the next step look like? So I did this for you. Now, how many of you guys, just put yes in the chat box, how many of you guys know who this is? This is an old dude. Just write down what you think, who you think this guy is. Come on, wake up now, everybody, wake up. Yay. Michael got it. Pierce got it. Ruben got it. No. Tom and Jerry. There you go. Mighty Mouse. Okay, so some people understand. So Alex, Mighty Mouse to save the day. That would be me, Mighty Mouse. Okay. I'm 5'10", but still not. That's not very tall. All right. So Mighty Mouse to save the day. So I just played with some numbers, Alex, and I want you and your brother Dan to really seriously think about this. And by the way, if you decide to sever this thing and tear the house down, sever it, and build, if you want, I'd like you to come back to me and talk to me about that, because there is a model that might work for you. Okay, but maybe a simpler thing to do, certainly easier, I think, would be to maybe put that micro suite in on, sort of what I call it the carport micro suite. Alex, you remember where that is? Yep. Okay. And you could put a backyard workshop, and I'm going to talk about this in a minute, a coach house called a gigaplex. So the coach house is very expensive, but I'll show you why in a minute. Say $285,000 to build that thing. The backyard workshop probably can do that for 95 grand, and a micro suite on the side of your building, maybe 125. So you might spend an extra $500,000, but the micro suite will generate $1,600 a month. I can't believe the rents. Tiffany sent me, and I think I shared it with everybody, that a micro suite, a coach house, was in Hamilton. I think it was $2,400 a month. This house of yours is much, much, much bigger and much nicer. A coach house in Hamilton, I think it was like not even 400 square feet, rented for $2,400 a month. It's insane. Anyway, $1,600 a month for the micro suite, $975 for the workshop, $4,250 for the coach house. I'll explain why it's so high in a little bit. Gives you $6,825 a month in income, gross operating income. So your total, when you add the $2,400 for the house and then these three animations, is over $100,000 a year. Your total cost has gone from $900,000 now to 1.4, 1.5 million, and your cap rate is now 6.9%. Alex, as you remember from last week, my goal is for every one of my properties to have a cap rate of 6% or more, and I think you can get there. If you did these animations and it worked out the way I've shown, you would probably get an appraised value for this with the coach house, the workshop, the additional micro suite of over $2 million. So I think this one could be pulled out of the fire. I do. So I'm going to get out of this. I'm going to put this, and especially for you, Alex, I'm going to put this in the chat box. Oh, Tiffany says the coach house in Hamilton was 443 square feet. All right, I'm going to send that to everybody. And then later on, Alex, I'm going to send you this by email. This is the Geo warehouse. So you should keep this on title, okay? I'll send you that to you via email. I can get my email program booted up here. I don't want to forget. So I'm going to send that to you now. There we go. So Geo warehouse, you can download it from Dropbox, Alex, is something that you can pull from land titles, and your realtor has access to it, your lawyer has access to it, and your mortgage broker has access to it. All right, so you guys will all have the spreadsheet, and Alex, I want you to think it through with your brother. And if you, like I said, if you decide, no, we're not going to put a coach house, we're not going to do the workshop thing, we're not going to do the micro suite, you're going to tear the house down, you're going to build 2 houses. I've got a model that will help you. All right, so what is a tech package or a multimedia package? Did I spell it right? I think so. We put these in almost all of our apartments. Our tenants love it. They pay us for it. It's a profit center. We have really good internet. Thank God. We've been doing this for 7 years or 8 years, long before the pandemic. But when the pandemic hit, thank goodness we had it. So good entertainment, really good internet, Google Mesh, which is fantastic. So that the Wi-Fi works pretty much everywhere. We use Nest thermostats so that we can control T-stats remotely. We use keypad locks, again, that we can program. If we have Airbnb or a tenant moves out, we can change the code. So the stuff that we're doing with technology and multimedia is really, really helping us. It's differentiating our portfolio from others. And I don't have to tell anybody on this call what it's like to hassle with AT&T or Verizon or Rogers or Telus or Bell. How long does it take you to get all of this technology working? When tenants move into our buildings, everything works. The moment they move in, we even have large screen TVs on the walls that stay with the unit. And the moment they come in, they're operational. It's really, really, really important. So I like doing it. And like I said, it's a profit center. When we first started doing it, I was doing a lease actually myself with a lady who was moving from Peterborough to Ottawa. And I said, well, why did you choose this particular apartment? And because, it was a little bit more expensive, I thought, than some of the others that were on the market. And she said, well, I'm a huge Game of Thrones fan. And I can't miss an episode. I mean, she was like an addict or something. And she said, I know, as soon as I saw you had this multimedia tech package thing going, and I realized, oh my gosh, I could just sit on the floor if I have to, and I can't miss an episode. So I laughed. I said, well, that's good. And she pays for it, but she probably doesn't pay much more to us than she would to anybody else. But we have ways of splitting it amongst 3 users or 10 users that make it financially successful for us as well. I love workshops. This is one of ours in a backyard of a property we own, and it's rented by a lady who runs her yoga practice out of that. She's a single mom with 3 kids. Her name's Maya, and she rents this from us, and it's very successful. We rent it to her for $885 a month, plus a percentage rent. Alex and everybody, what is a percentage rent? That's a commercial term. In other words, we get a percentage of her revenues, right? That's very typical in commercial, not typical, obviously, in residential. I don't even think it's legal in Ontario to do that, but certainly in commercial, you can do that, right? So our cap rate on something like this is about 10%. Something else we really love is buying these little mini offices, and they're so small, we can put them in backyards without a building permit. We add internet, we add heat, we add electricity, and we rent them. And so, because, if you have 5 kids like I do, and a mother-in-law living with you, and you're trying to work, right? It can be a little distracting. So maybe you have your own backyard mini office, and it's a profit center for us too. And the cap rates are very good. And then I said, Alex, I didn't really like your sheds. Those sheds steel sheds you buy from Lowe's or Home Depot, they're junk. They don't, in Connecticut or northern Wisconsin or Ottawa, where you have a lot of snow, they don't last a year. So I buy these from the Amish. They cost about $2,500 to $3,000. They last 40 years. And the cap rates are fantastic. Something else I've talked a little bit about is something else I do to make things look homey is I just love adding some playful elements. So I'll if I'm renting in an apartment, I'll have maybe a cornhole game, which is, you know, beanbag toss game. I might put a bocce court in the backyard, a mini ping pong table inside or outside. Something that is a playful element really helps animate it. You know, you don't make money on it, but I have this theory, and many of you have heard me say it before: couples that play together stay together, tenants that play stay, right? It's very important to have some very simple elements that you can add to your properties, and people really, it shows you care as a landlord, and playful elements make a huge difference. Maybe they only play mini ping pong a couple of times a year, cornhole a few times a year, and bocce a few times a year, but they will stay longer and pay more. The other thing that we're doing a lot with is backyard gardening. That's a huge deal today. So we have raised garden beds and all kinds of things that we put into rental property, which, and we don't charge people for it. They just go there and they can grow their tomatoes and their cucumbers and their chives and, you know, their kale and whatever else. People really, really like the backyard homestead. Okay, so I wanted to tell you all that I've given you an A+ so far as students. One of the best classes since maybe I taught Alex 27 years ago. Okay, so guess what? It is time for a pop quiz. See if you guys are actually paying attention. All right, so I'm going to get out of this again. So what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to, and you're going to take about 10 minutes to work on this. I'd like, hang on a second, try again. I'm going to put this in the chat box, and I'd like you all to download. There's 10 questions. This is a Word document, and I'll show you what it looks like. I want to show you the one with, yeah, here it is. So this is what it'll look like. So if you don't mind, just download it. It'll take 10 minutes or so. I'll take a little break. So it's a pop quiz, and here's question number 1. Prof. Bruce recommends that you not buy an investment property with a cap rate less than 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7%. Anybody know the answer to that? Just put it in the chat box. There you go. So you just, all you do is you underline that. So you know, and you're going to score this yourself. You don't have to tell anybody. If you get 0 out of 10, nobody's going to know except you. But I want you to actually score it like that. Just underline that. And there's 10 questions. And at the end, you can put your score here and your name here, and you can send it to me if you want, but you don't have to. It's entirely up to you. And then whoever finishes first and is willing to say, hey, I'm done, I am going to get you to share your screen and show us your answers. Okay, so you've got, it shouldn't take more than a few minutes, but I'm going to take a slight break, and I'll be back, and you guys can work on your pop quiz. It's very easy. Haha, Chiranjeev, you're done. Do you feel like where's Chiranjeev? Do you feel like sharing your screen and unmuting yourself and telling everybody?
Yes, Bruce. Hi, Bruce. Hi, everyone. So I'll share my screen and see. I don't know if I'm.
All right. So I just made you the co-host. Share your screen. Let's see what you came up with.
Sure. I'm looking options. Yeah, share. I have to give permission, Bruce. So just give me a minute. I'm sharing it.
Put you on the spot. Oh, there we go. Excellent. Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, in my system preference. Yes, in my system preference, it was not there, so I have to set it up in Mac. So here, the answer. Bruce, do you want to read, or shall I?
No, you're the star.
Okay, okay. Yep. So the first question, as everyone answered, that's 6%, and we know that. So the second question was the fair market value of an investment property. I think is the divide the fair market value cap rate for your area by your NOI, and that gives you the fair market value of the property.
Okay, so anybody want to unmute themselves and dispute that with Chiranjeev? Question 2.
I said C. This is Michael.
Hi, Michael. Why did you say C?
Because I checked the math and that's works.
Yeah, no, yeah.
So Chiranjeev, the correct answer is C. Divide your net operating income by the fair market value cap rate for your area. Okay, so you reversed it.
Yep, I did that.
Okay, so let's go to question 3.
Okay, so you calculate your cap rate by, so I selected A, dividing your NOI by your cost to purchase an investment property plus any reno costs.
Very good, excellent.
Okay, you calculate your NOI by, I selected B, option B. That's everything common from A, but there is another add-on, which is less principal and interest paid on your mortgage that you reduce.
Okay, so anybody want to unmute themselves and dispute that one with Chiranjeev?
Hey, it's Denise and Stuart here.
Okay, Denise, Stuart, fire away.
So basically, the proper answer here is A,
Yes.
because we are not including debt servicing as we're calculating cap rate, so that we are able to compare buildings, whether you've paid full cash for them or whether you've financed them.
I knew that. I just did a silly mistake here.
That's all right. Listen, I put you on the spot, and I respect you for even volunteering. I really appreciate it. Okay, next question 5.
Yeah, so Professor Bruce has found that OPEX eats up about what percentage of GOI? So he told us 34%, and
Correct.
I think that's the one. So 6 is you just bought a duplex in any city, USA for $500,000, including all closing costs and rentals. It has $25,000 in NOI. What is your cap rate? So I calculated by dividing 25,000 by 500,000. That's 5% per year.
Perfect.
And then 7 is if it changes to 4.5% on above question value, then what will be the new cap rate? I calculate as 555,555.
Perfect.
And then question 8 is how do you get a free house for yourself and your family? I think it's option B, emanating what Professor Bruce told, and you can get a free house. There are different options. And question 9 is anchor pricing is, I think is when you're going to get your investment property reappraised, you should always provide your appraiser. I think it's option A before they do the appraisal side.
Absolutely correct.
Yep. And question 10 is about last this Fix It class that Nick Foley and his spouse Brooke Foley purchased a house that has the NOI of 58,806 per year, and they do the same kind of investment for other 5 property, and the mortgage is paid out, then how much they get monthly. So I just multiplied 58,806 into 5 divided by 12. So I get the amount 24,502.50.
So Chiranjeev, do you see why cap rates have nothing to do with mortgage payments? Because what we're really asking ourselves with that last question and some of the other stuff that we went through, and thanks again for doing this, what we're really asking ourselves is this: if we buy 5 what I call Nick Foley's, 512 Highland in Belleville, 5 properties exactly like that, and over the next 10, 15, 20 years, however long it takes, 25 years, we pay off those mortgages, right? Then we're left with $24,502 a month in cash flow that we can touch, feel, and spend, because the mortgages have been paid off. That's why the cap rate has nothing to do with mortgage payments, because, you know, some people are, some rich dudes, they buy property for cash. That's their return. Or if you're like me or most of the people on this call, we put financing in place. We hope one day that we'll pay those mortgages off. And once we've done that, how much money are we left with? So think about that. Think about the power of real estate. How much money, Chiranjeev, would you have to save to get, and put it in the bank at say 2%, to get $24,502 a month in cash flow? The answer is 14 million bucks. And you know, I'm a terrible saver. So the chances of somebody like me saving $14 million over a lifetime so I can sit there in Costa Rica sipping rum and smoking cigars is 0. But could you, Chiranjeev, or Chris, or Michael, or any of us buy 5 properties like Nick and Brooke did over a lifetime and pay off those mortgages and sit on 24,000 bucks a month? The answer, I think, is yes.
That's correct.
All right. So do you mind if you stop sharing your screen now?
Sure.
All right. So do you I mean, I know that that wasn't a particularly difficult pop quiz, but I really hope people are starting to see the power of real estate and why it is, like, maybe it, you know, look, the Europeans have been doing this for hundreds, maybe even thousands of years. The Holy Roman Catholic Church has been one of the biggest investors in real estate for at least 1,000 years, maybe longer. The Emperor of Japan, he owns a lot of real estate. Betty Windsor, if you know who she is, the Queen of England, she owns a hell of a lot of real estate, okay? So if it's okay for all of these long-lived institutions to own real estate, it's okay for you and me to have 5 Nick Foleys, right? 512 Highlands or more. But I mean, 24,000 bucks a month, Chiranjeev, is not the worst thing that ever happened to a person, right? All right, so let me go back to my screen now. Thank you so much for doing that. And I hope it was helpful for all of you to do that little bit of an exercise. So coming back now to talk about Nick Foley again and Brooke Foley again, is Nick called me up during the week. I don't know if he called me or emailed me, I can't remember. But you remember we were talking about, for his 12 Highland, putting a stick-built bunkie in the back that Dustin Pools on the call had designed, a 542 square foot bunkie and piles, probably going to cost about 185,000 Canadian dollars, right? But Nick remembered that I had talked about Boxable. This is the prefab unit from the United States that's being sold for 50,000 bucks. And he said, look, Bruce, it's almost as big. It's not as big. It's probably about 350 square feet. So it's not as big as this. But if it's 50,000 as opposed to 185,000, maybe I ought to go with something like this. And I said, whatever you think it makes most sense for you, do it. And you remember that Nick beat me by a mile. You know, I got $15,000 off below asking for the property I bought in Belleville. He got almost $100,000 off. And if he can do something for 50,000 that cost me 185,000 bucks, by golly, he should do it. Now, having said that, if you buy something in the United States and import it into Canada, you might pay some duties. You're almost certainly going to pay HST at the border. And then you have to put it on some kind of a footing and foundation. So it might be piles. You have to hook it up for water and sewer. So it might not be 50,000 versus 185. It might be 125,000 versus 185, but that's still a very significant difference. And so I'm looking forward to hearing back from Nick. Are you hearing me, Nick? I'm expecting you to report back to this group next week, okay? As to which direction you might be going in. You just put it in the chat box. Nick, have you heard me? Okay. Oh, sounds good. Okay, so next week we're going to put Foley on the spot. Which way is he going to go? Oh, Dustin, you always are, you know, a party pooper. Dustin Poole says, I wonder if this unit will be approved by the city of Ottawa. That's another good question. In your case, Nick, you might want to talk to the town of Belleville or the city of Belleville to find out. So I don't know the answer to that. But a lot of these modular homes, just so everybody knows, are not subject, and Dustin, you would know this, are not subject to the building code per se. They are covered under Part 9 of the building code in Ontario, which means that they're CSA approved, and there's a similar group in the United States. So that they might not require city approval. It's like buying an RV or a car. You don't need a city approval for it. But good point, Dustin. We have to find out. So we'll task Nick to find that out. But here's what I wanted to show you. Now, this is pretty corny, okay? This is what I asked Nick to do. I said, I got to stop sharing for a minute if I can remember how to do that here. I said, Nick, you see this piece of paper? I'll hold it up a little closer to the camera. It's just an 8.5 by 11. Sorry, it's kind of hard to see. But what it is it's a piece of paper, and I wrote on it N equals 5. So N equals 5 Nick Foleys, and I wrote a date on it, December 31st, 2026. So 5 years from now, I want Nick and Brooke to have 5 Nick Foleys and 5 12 Highlands by the time, you know, Nick's in his 40s, by the time he's 46 or 47. So that by the time he's ready to retire or whatever, you know, he'll have $24,000, $25,000 a month. Now you sort of say, what the heck, Bruce? That's not really, you know, that's not really, you know, scientific goal setting, but it's very, very powerful. So what I would like each of you guys to do between now and next week, because we're only going to have one more class together, although I hope I see you all in March, because I'm going to do another class then. But anyway, what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to think about your goals. And I know it sounds kind of corny just to have a piece of paper, but you know, I actually get my clients to, when I used to be able to see clients, I'd have them actually stand there like this, like, you know, a mug shot. And I would take a picture of them and I would note in my calendar, you know, and I would note it down and I would say, okay, 2026, I'm going to see how Nick is doing, right? I might not be around in 2026, but let's hope I am. So what I'm saying to you is you should think about your goals. And if they're too complicated, you know, they'll just kind of disappear. Write it down on a piece of paper and tape it up next to your bed. Tape it up next to your computer. And every day you see that thing. And it'll drive you crazy. That's the whole point. And you'll internalize that goal. And you know, you've heard about The Secret, right? You send a message out to the universe and it comes back somehow. I don't know how it works, but it does seem to work. So if you visualize Nick and Brooke Foley, if they visualize having 5 of these properties by the time they're 5 years older, I'll bet you they'll do it. And you know, you throw it out into the universe, you internalize it, and you set your intentions. That's what Nick, those words, set your intentions, came from Nick. And I put down at the bottom, Chiranjeev, that if you wanted to have the same income as you're getting from the 5 Nick Foleys, you need to save $14 million, almost $15 million at 2% to get the same income. Almost impossible for most of us to do that. All right. So I'd like you all to think about your own goals. And I've got people that I coach as old as 92. All right. And that's the oldest. And I've got clients as young as 24, 25 I coach. And I ask them all to do some very simple goal setting. And Chiranjeev, that's where the cap rate really helps you, because that's all you need to know. I have a portfolio of 5 Nick Foleys. It's worth $2.5 million. I've got a 6%, or let's make it easy, 10% cap rate. I'm getting $250,000 once I retire my mortgages. Do you see how simple that is? And I'm telling you guys, complexity is the enemy of success. If your goals are too complicated, your business is too complicated. I said real estate is a business model for dummies. I'm not ashamed to admit it. And that's what we're trying to do in this course. The next course I teach is going to be a little bit more complicated, but there's nothing wrong with a simple model. You implement it, you focus on it. And then, as I said before, once you have built up a nice portfolio and a nice income, you don't pledge it for debt and go buy an NHL team. Okay? Right? Which somebody did. Okay? That's a bad idea. All right. Now, this is the last thing we're going to cover off today. This is probably the most important thing I can teach you in this course. And Alex, this is particularly relevant, I think, for you and Dan, because this is something that produces outstanding results in so many ways. And you don't bother searching for the name Gigaplex. I made it up. And so the name of this coach house that I'm going to show you is a Gigaplex. And the tagline is home free. And I'm all about getting free homes, right? Who doesn't want a free home? I've got a nice suite in my house here. Unfortunately, Alex, I don't make any money from it. That's because my youngest son moved back in with us, and I don't charge him any rent. But one day maybe he'll find another girlfriend. He broke up with his girlfriend. He might move out again. And even Prof. Bruce, I believe in making even my principal residence work for me. Rather than me work for my home, I want my home to work for me. And I love my son. I hope he stays for a bunch more years, but maybe one day he'll move out and I'll be able to rent it again. Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you for that. That's good, Shirley. Okay. So I called it, let's go back here, home free. And I did that because I think you can get a free home, but I also did it because when I was a kid, and I'm sure all of us did that, we played hide and go seek. And when you were running, to get home, you always would yell home free, right? It's just a beautiful memory for me, and I'm sure for many people. So you get a free home, you're free as the wind blows, and home free, right? Okay. And why did I call it Gigaplex? Well, Giga stands for billion. I was actually going to call it Megaplex, but I thought, inflation is here. So Giga is bigger than Mega. I think Mega is whatever, 1 million, and Giga is 1 billion. So I called it Gigaplex, just inflation. And I also called it Gigaplex because this is a theme in the course. Everybody, pretty much has some kind of side hustle, some kind of gig going on. So Gigaplex is for side hustle, for gig, it's got a lot of, anyway, that's my rationale for calling it Gigaplex. So this is a coach house, and it was developed by myself and Alex. I don't know if you remember Tim Moore. Tim Moore was one of my students in the School of Architecture. Wonderful guy. Well, he's a bit younger than you. Now that I know you're 50.
I don't know him.
Yeah, he's a wonderful architect and architectural technologist. He worked with me on this product. All right, so this is a product that I intend to build in my backyard here at 14 Riverbrook, where I live. And this is just a bit of a perspective. And you look at it and you think, well, there's really nothing that much going on here, but there's a few things that are quite subtle. And I want you guys to pay attention. I want to make sure I don't go over time. Okay, I got enough time to do this. Okay, so it is a 841 square foot, 2-bedroom home. 841 square feet, 2-bedroom home. In the City of Ottawa Coach House bylaw, the maximum size of a coach house is the lesser of 40% of your backyard, 40% of the developed area of your house, or 841 square feet, whichever is the least. And so I have a huge backyard and not a huge house, but a big enough house, so that the variable that I have to pay attention to is the maximum footprint. So the maximum footprint is 841, and this is 841 square feet. Now, there's a few things I want you to notice about this isometric view. Number one, you notice there's a side door here. This is a side door. The main door is over here. And what we're doing with a lot of our new development is we're doing zero-step entry. I can't remember exactly how many what percentage of our population by 2030 will be elderly. That means 65 or older, but I think it's something like 30% or 34% or something like that. CMHC and the United States, they have, the census has all of these stats, but it's something like a quarter or a third of the market will be elderly. And so a zero-step entry is just that. It means that you can walk in if you have a walker or a wheelchair without, any stairs. And I hate those things that you see in front of houses where somebody is obviously not well, and they have those, I don't know what you call them, they kind of zigzag and you can put a wheelchair up. That stigmatizes a house. So we create zero-step entry with landscaping as opposed to, whatever you call it. I don't know what you even call those things, but anyway, ramps, I guess. They stigmatize the house and I don't like it. So you'll see a zero-step entry here and a zero-step entry here created from landscaping. But even for young people, like if you're a young dad or young mom with a groceries or a baby carriage, it's kind of nice just to be able to go in zero-step, right? So there you go. Something else that we do a lot of is we do something I call a manufactured walkout condition. Guys would know that if you have a slope like this and a house sitting there, your basement can have a walkout condition, right? It's easy to do, but we manufacture those. So you can see that we're going to excavate, and probably will excavate more than what's shown here, so that the lower level has more light and air. So if you have a tenant if you have a tenant in the basement of this thing, you have more light and more air, right? And tenants will stay much, much longer if they have more light. I mean, light's very important, especially in the northern parts of the States and in Canada. And what we'll probably do is we'll probably actually pull this back a little bit further, because whether you excavate 8 feet or you excavate 12 or 14 feet, doesn't matter. And in some of the ones that we built, we excavate up 14 feet so that at the lower level, you not only have a whole wall of glass and air and everything else, you also have enough room for a barbecue and a table and your own private patio. And of course, down here, you have to connect that to the stormwater, because you don't want to have a flood down there, right? So it has to be connected to the storm system, and you have to check your inverts that you make sure that it'll drain. So what I want you to pay particular attention to, though, is the side door here. Okay, why is there an extra door there? I'll show you. So here's another view of it. Get a little bit better view of the main entrance over here. And again, there's that side door that I wanted you to keep in your mind. Now, this is the floor plan. This is the ground floor plan here. And remember, the main entrance is over here. And you come in here, and it looks pretty much like a standard little 2-bedroom apartment. You got a bedroom here, a living room here, kitchen here, a cheater ensuite here. That means that it can be accessed from the public area as well as from the master bedroom. And we don't put in dining rooms anymore. Hardly any families these days or tenants these days are sitting down for dinner, right? So what we did here was we just put lunch counters in. So you've got a kitchen, lunch counter, living room, cheater ensuite, 2 bedrooms. But here's what is really, really important. This second bedroom is a micro suite. Fully self-contained micro suite, and it has its own ingress and egress from the outside. Alex, every time an architect or architectural technologist adds a door to the outside, from whether it's from a bedroom or any room, you've added value and you've added space without adding more space. So in this case, let's just say, so Michael, I'm just because I can see you, Michael, let's say you own this. And you decide to rent me this 2-bedroom apartment in Ottawa, where I live. I'm an old dude, you rent it to me, and you say, Bruce, I'm gonna rent you this apartment for $2,000 a month. And if you're in Hamilton with Tiffany, I don't know, it'd probably be $3,000. But let's say, Michael, you decide to rent this 2-bedroom apartment to me for $2,000 a month. I said, great. It's a sweet little building in the backyard of Michael's house. I'm cool with that. But here's the difference, you guys. Michael, as the landlord, gives me the permission. In fact, he requires me to sublet this. Most landlords say, oh, sublet, no. No, Michael's different. He says, I want you to sublet that, Bruce. So what happens is I rent this from Michael for $2,000 a month. I live in the master bedroom here. got my living room, got my bathroom, my kitchen, etc. And I put this on Airbnb. And here in Ottawa, maybe I get $200 a night, and maybe I do it for 20 nights a month. So I am paying Michael $2,000 a month to live in this lovely 2-bedroom apartment in his backyard. And I'm making $4,000 a month from my own Airbnb. I am living in my own house, really, for a negative amount of money. Alex, are you following me? Michael, you follow that? But wait, it gets better. You get a set of Ginsu knives. That's late night TV. I'm kidding. But wait, it does get better. Here's what happens, Michael. In the lease, and we've been doing this now for 6 or 7 years, in the lease, you as the landlord put in a percentage rent. Remember I talked about percentage rent a few minutes ago? So let's say you decide, hey, Bruce, I'm giving you permission to do whatever you want with this, within reason, and I want 20% of whatever revenues you generate. So wait a second. So all of a sudden, Michael is getting $2,000 a month plus 20% of my $4,000. That's another $800. So now Michael's making even more money, $2,800. And how much work, Michael, are you doing for that extra money? Zero. Wait a second. Now, what about the old dude, Firestone? Well, he's living in his own place. He's paying $2,000 a month, getting $4,000 out of this thing, giving $800 to Michael, netting $3,200. He's living in his own 2-bedroom apartment here for a negative $1,200 a month. Gentlemen and ladies, this is the real solution to affordable housing. I coach Ottawa Community Housing, Emily Murphy Nonprofit Housing Corporation. I coach now thousands of people in the United States and Canada, and they're building these all over the place. Now, Michael, if you put an ad on Kijiji or on Craigslist saying, does anybody want a free apartment? You think you'd get a few applications, Michael? Maybe more than 1 or 2? And this doesn't have to be for Airbnb. Maybe I'm a hairdresser and I use it for my hairdressing salon. Maybe I'm a registered massage therapist. Maybe I'm a physiotherapist. Maybe I have my PSW, my personal support worker certificate, and I could take in an elder. Michael, do you know how much it costs? Anybody want to put in how much it costs to put an elderly person like me or somebody older than me in a retirement residence? Put it in the chat box if you guys don't mind, what you think it costs a month to put somebody in. $5K a month from Chris. Anybody else want to guess, or how much? 4,000 to 6,000 from Denise and Stuart, 3,500, 6,000, 2,000. Right. So think about this. So let's say I'm an old dude, but let's say I went and got my PSW, and I said I'll take in an elderly lady. Maybe she's 85. My mother-in-law is 97, so I could take her in, for example, and I could provide care. She has a connecting door here, but she has her own privacy, right? And you know, maybe she's paying $4,000 a month or $5,000. So maybe I charge her $3,000 a month. So, and she has much better care. She has me living right there with my PSW, right? And she's staying in the community. I call those, I hate retirement residences. I'm sorry, I hope I'm not offending him, but I hate those places. And they're just, to me, they're just vertical warehouses where you put old people to die, waiting to die. I just hate them. Keep them in the community, keep them involved. And this is, so Michael, this suite could be used by yours truly for any number of things, okay? All right, now this is the basement. Remember I talked about the basement. So for my particular gigaplex in the backyard, for my particular use, I would like to move my coaching practice out of the house and into the basement of this. So I have configured this where you go down into the basement. This is the manufacturer walkout condition. You've got reception, office, couple of bathrooms, another office. But you guys can already tell that the gigaplex idea could apply exactly the same in the basement. Do you understand that? So think about this. I'll go back up here. Remember, there's a door here, on another door over here, which goes to the basement. So you got a door over here in the manufacturer walkout condition to get the basement, and a door over here. You come down here, and you've got another gigaplex opportunity. You've got an office, which could easily be a bedroom or a micro suite with its own bathroom, its own little kitchen. And again, you can duplicate the whole thing. Now, I want you to think about this. And Alex, I'm not going to go through all of the technical specs on how we're going to soundproof it and fireproof it and all the rest and get it approved. That's why we have people like you, and we have people like Dustin Poole and many other brilliant people, including yours truly, but we'll get it done. So what I'm saying to you is this, think about this. This could be a 5-bedroom single-family house in your backyard, or it could be a 2-bedroom apartment upstairs and a 3-bedroom apartment downstairs. Could be, or it could be, you know, basically you got 2 apartments up here and 2 apartments down here. You could actually have 4 apartments, 2 of them being micro suites. It has tremendous flexibility, and the money you can generate with this is unbelievable. So square this circle. How can a landlord make even more money, provide tenants with free rent, and the landlord does less work? It's the gigaplex. This is my property in Ottawa. This is the house. This is where the coach house is going to go. We're on a corner lot, so it will have its own little driveway here. This is just a picture of the house. You can see it's on the corner. And then this is our backyard. Our backyard is huge. But Alex, I'm almost positive you can build one of these things in the backyard of the property that you and Dan own. Now, I'm going to try and turn this on. This is a 2-minute video. This was the very, very, very first lady who she was the very first Gigaplex tenant. So she was the tenant, and this was done in Rockland, Ontario. So I'm going to see if I can get this thing. I might have to turn it up because it might be hard to hear. It's only 2 minutes. Is it okay if I play it? Because I want you to see what this can do for tenants. All right, so I'll see if I can get this going.
At first, I was very hesitant because I wasn't sure if I could handle like what it entitled for me. But then,
sorry, can you guys hear it? Okay. Okay. Sorry.
Getting to know a little bit more about it, I was kind of open to the idea, but still a little hesitant. But thank you, Alex, for explaining everything to me and making me more at ease with it. It's helped me immensely. It's helped with the rent. It's helped with the things around the house. They do help. And it helps to being able to rely on someone since we do have a good relationship with the people downstairs. They also have pets, so they take care of mine. So it's actually built a friendship, and it's turned out really great. Yes, actually, because well, it's actually really helping. Like I said, that they're great tenants. But I think it would because, first of all, like I said, it lowers the rent. So for me, it's kind of just take to be living in this really great place. Like, and it's big, so it's perfect for us. And it's actually pretty simple. So yeah, definitely, I would agree to stay a little bit longer. Hard to think of it like that because I've never even thought of having it like that. But since they refer to me as the landlord, it's kind of like, ooh, okay. But yes, I do feel like this is a little bit more at my home since I have a little bit more control of what goes on in here. And at first I thought it would be hard, but within a week we found him, and with my property manager and with you, Alex, it was nice to be able to count on someone to help me show the house and explain, like answer all the questions and whatnot. But no, it was actually pretty easy. I'm really thankful for that. Yeah, so I signed my lease in mid-March, and I had someone a week after. So I had someone before April 1st, which is whenever they came in. So it felt great, and even my first month rent, I didn't have to pay in full. So great. I definitely would recommend it to anybody who could do it.
Does that blow your mind or what? I mean, it's really special. I mean, she is, she's a single mom, and there's no way she could have afforded that particular place without, this gigaplex idea. And by the way, for the architects here and possibly the developers here, this idea works all the way up. You could have a 40-story building. Some of my clients, and this will be the last thing I show you because we actually are at the end, but I'll see if I could find it for you here. Hang on a sec. Yes. So this will be the last thing I show you, and I don't want to keep you over time, but just for one more minute, bear with me. So this is a project in White Rock, BC, which is commercial at grade and some co-working space at the second floor. The penthouse is for rich dudes, but floors 3, 4, and 5 are all gigaplexed. And this is how you gigaplex an apartment building. You can see it here. This is a 2-bedroom apartment. You can see here the green bedroom, the blue bedroom. This is the door from the corridor into the main apartment here, a connecting door here, and a second door to the outside, in this case, the corridor. All right. So Alex Nardo and Dustin Poole and developers like Denise and Stuart and others, you could do a 30-story building, 40-story building like this. And one of the things that surprised me, we've been doing it all over the place, in San Francisco, in Calabogie, in British Columbia. One of the things that surprised me is that some young people are living in this small unit and renting out the big unit, because they can make even more money. But who cares, right? So this, to me, is at least one of the solutions for affordable housing. And like I said, it's a live-work condition. It's a live-live condition. It has great potential, in my opinion. I was supposed to present it in 2020 at the Beijing New Economy Forum, which Michael Bloomberg was hosting, but unfortunately it got wiped out by COVID. So it isn't public yet, and I'm not going to make it public until sometime in the future, but it is something I share with people like you guys on this course. I hope you enjoyed today. I will see you next week. I hope you don't mind if you get a few more emails from me. Please feel free to reach out to me by email, and I look forward to seeing you all next week.
Thank you, Bruce. Have a good day.
Bye.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Bye, everybody. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.